Well, we're privileged to hear from one of the world's primary scientific leaders of AI, studying the trends, impacts, and international efforts to harness the benefits and mitigate the risks of AI. We welcome for a keynote Professor Yoshua Bengio, Scientific Director of MILA, Quebec AI Institute, and IVADO at University of Montreal, and Canada's CFAR AI Chair. Thank you, Yoshua.
My pleasure. Thanks for the introduction. So there are a few things I'd like to say. I guess everybody in this audience understand that the intellectual power of AI is on the rise, and that power can be turned into all kinds of powers in the hands of humans: economic power, political power, military power. And so this question of how is that power used is central to the survival of our democracies if you look in the long run, because power concentration is really in contradiction with the very idea of democracy, which is sharing power. So that's one angle. The kind of more practical and short-term angle is how the AI systems that are coming, next year and the year after, and so on, could be used in a beneficial way, but also dangerous ways. And so this technology is clearly dual use. So disinformation, frauds, cyber attacks, bioattacks, chemical weapons, all that is worrying national security agencies in many countries. And there's a technical problem, which is we don't know right now how to train an AI so that it'll be safe, that it won't be something that a bad actor can exploit easily. Companies have been putting safety protections of all kinds, but they don't work. They can be removed easily, especially if you have access to the open source, the trained weights of these systems. And then the other problem that is debated in the scientific community is that there's a potential for losing control of these systems. There is no known scientific method right now to guarantee that it won't happen, that an AI will not start having its own interests more at heart than our interests. And in fact, there are arguments suggesting that the kinds of methods we're using now, especially reinforcement learning, would tend, as the AIs become more powerful, to make it more likely that they would end up disconnected from our needs and instructions and look for themselves, basically have a self-preservation objective. So until we better understand these things, I think we have to be extremely careful. All of those risks are related to this question of alignment, that we can't control them, we can't instruct them to do the things we want. In fact, it also includes a lot of the current harms like bias and discrimination. If we knew how to design those systems so that they would not discriminate, so that they would be aligned with our values, our norms, our laws, that would be a lot better, but we don't know how to do that. So we need to move forward with a lot more care than is currently happening. The good news is the Biden executive order, which is making a very important step, and maybe the most important in the world right now, towards protecting the public, towards, for example, securing those systems when they have some level of capability, which right now we can evaluate, roughly with their computational costs, computational resources that are used to train these systems as a proxy for their capability, which is a proxy for them potentially be used to create harm. One of the things that I would like to see changed, especially from a legal perspective, in the direction that regulators are taking. Right now, we may be on a path in which companies give access to governments to their big models, and governments then have to test them and try all kinds of things in order to find a safety problem. But that puts the burden of finding those problems on governments, whereas I think it would be a lot more efficient collectively if it was on companies, it would be their responsibility to demonstrate a sufficient level of safety. That would create a lot more innovation, a lot more R&D to build safer systems. And of course, the other issue is that currently those companies have the expertise and have the resources to do that kind of research, whereas governments doesn't. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's really important that governments invest in building the expertise in AI, first to help the regulator, because the regulators still need to set the bar somewhere. And also in order to start thinking about what's going to happen when these AI systems that maybe are not in the legitimate hands that follow the law, but in bad actors' hands are used for cyber attacks, are used for disinformation and so on. Governments need to invest in their own AI capabilities to protect the public. Now, I want to go back to the question of security of these systems to make sure they don't fall into bad hands, and that we can at least apply some levels of safety to them. So if you compare an open source system versus a closed source system like ChatGPT with an API, if we find a vulnerability in ChatGPT, then the code can be changed, and then the next request that come will benefit from that. If a vulnerability is found in Llama 2, which is open source, it's too late. It's been irreversibly shared with everyone, and the bad guys are not going to apply a security patch on it. So the decision to allow a piece of code and the trained system especially to be shared with the world is something that we shouldn't leave to CEOs. It should be something that the democratic process and the regulator decide, because the consequences of these decisions, if we take the wrong decisions, are on everyone. So it's kind of like an externality from the point of view of economics. Companies will have an incentive to be slightly less on the safe side than a neutral agent like the regulator that doesn't have money in the game. So the last point I want to make is really, as we think about these risks and as we think about regulation and treaties, we have to understand that it's not a static situation. It's not like we're trying to solve a problem due to the current systems. We are, but we also need to think about the next generation. The systems are going to be 10 times bigger in a year from now. The systems are going to be 100 times bigger in 2 or 3 years from now. And what is that going to mean in terms of their capability and the potential for excessive concentration of power and excessively dangerous misuse? The way I think about it, in order to counter that power, we're going to need to innovate on the kind of legal and democratic institutions to deal with that. For example, I think that the labs that are developing the frontier systems in the future should have much stronger governance. They should have much stronger democratic governance, governance that is multi-stakeholder, both, not just governments, but also civil society, independent academics, even the media should be able to raise a red flag when something is happening that could endanger everyone. And even at a multilateral level, because the consequences of what we're doing with AI right now in a particular country are going probably to affect many other countries. So we need to consider the global risks here, as well as the way to tame those risks. Thank you for your attention.